Hello, and welcome to another episode of Joy and Gratitude. I'm Queiro, and I'm here with my co-host, Ms. Beth Mercurio. And Beth, what are we talking about today?
Ooh, today we're going to talk about consistency. Hmm. What consistency can lead to and what inconsistency can lead to. And it just feels like a wonderful topic because I feel like it is a pillar of trust. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But tell me what you think about when you think about consistency and somebody being consistent or somebody being inconsistent. What comes to mind for you? What is the first thing that you
First
think
word that
about?
came to mind was trust.
Hmm.
Dependability. Um, a person that is disciplined. You know, I remember, and this story just came to mind all of a sudden. I was very young in my career, and this will date me. This was a time that I was managing a large coding operation. And on a daily basis, there was a download that had to take. So the systems would do the overnight operation. And I was responsible for that download. And my boss knew that come hell or high water, I always did it. There was nothing, even if I had to stay late because there was something, I would do whatever it takes. And I had an emergency one day. And I asked one of my coders to actually, that had the ability to do it. Not everybody had the security, but she had the security to do the download. And I went and ran to handle my emergency. She didn't do it. And even though I called her and I said, "Did you get it done?" And she kept saying, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah," she didn't do it. And the next morning, I walk in and my boss's face. As soon as I saw her face, I knew what happened. I knew the download didn't happen. And I was thinking, oh, maybe she hasn't done it in years because I've been doing it. Maybe she didn't know all the process. I'm trying to understand. But the fact of the matter, it just wasn't done. And to see my boss's face of that break in the dependability, the consistency, the discipline, the trust, I felt crushed.
Hmm.
And, it took me forever to move past it. I mean, I was overcompensating in so many areas. And reality, did it destroy the world? No. It was not. I mean, it wasn't really the biggest issue. We were able to do a double download that day, working with IT, and things happened, and it all went on track. But the break of trust, when there is
Hmm.
consistency, the fact that my integrity was in question, sometimes more by me than by the other
Hmm.
person. She got over it. She was fine. Once, I came with, this is what we can do, this is how I can help, blah blah blah. She was fine. There was a plan, it was executed, everything got fixed. But I was crushed because my integrity was broken. So consistency
Can I pause you
has,
for a minute?
yeah, sure.
I want to stay on that thought because I don't know that I need you to say more because I'm having having a reaction to the comment. Having this is what we do here. When we have a reaction, we
Yeah, of
we say
course,
like I'm having a
always.
reaction. Why, tell me more about why you're saying your integrity was diminished, lost, etc. Because that's a piece I'm really curious about that because I was following along in the story and I'm
Mhm,
like, okay,
mhm.
you set a standard just based on your consistency that she trusted, etc. So integrity is that's a big word to say that your integrity. So is that your story?
It's my
Because
story.
yeah,
Absolutely my story. For me,
because
integrity is everything. my word is it. If I give you my word, come
Mhm.
hell or high water, I will deliver. That is something that is ingrained in me. It's something that I hold dear. Um, and sometimes it expands beyond where it should expand. And I know that about myself. So for me, it was an
Mm.
integrity broken issue. For my boss, it wasn't.
I was just
But
gonna
for
say, I
me,
want to
this was
clarify.
about me. In this situation,
Interesting.
I was talking about myself. I wasn't
Okay.
talking about the other person. The other person honestly got over it. But I had a major challenge getting over it. I had a major challenge getting over it because I gave her my word that that
Mm.
download was going to happen every single day, that we were going to process claims. And these were the claims of the hospital that didn't get processed because that download didn't happen. And for me, I broke the trust. So, is it
Mhm.
psychologically make any sense? Maybe that much. Maybe I made it more than what it should be. But at the moment, it was my reality.
Mm.
And
If
what I was going to say is that many a times we have to understand that consistency means something different to everybody.
Meaning the bar that is set for
That is
consistency?
correct. That is
Mhm.
correct. I
Which
have,
is yeah.
yeah,
Well, I was
well,
just gonna say, we're all learning a lot about Neo today on the podcast because as you can imagine, I'm sure our listeners and me are thinking, "Woo, look at that." Like no grace. Because I believe I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, "Wow." So I agree with you. You're sharing that integrity is a personal value of yours, right? Which I think we know. So it's a value of yours. And the part that's really interesting is you had an emergency or a crisis, which means it is an exception, like an outlier to the norm. It's a complete
mhm,
outlier. This isn't like this is happening over and over again. You've created this beautiful foundation and there's an outlier. This is where grace and space becomes so beautiful, and somebody else impacted your ability. And so that's the piece that I think is interesting. Maybe we dig into that because
yeah,
you
that's fair.
actually couldn't. There's nothing you could have done because you had to do the emergency. So the plan you set up failed, but you didn't fail. So it's really interesting to me that you felt, which is what happens, like you still felt like you broke trust, even though you had done all the things. And the person on the receiving end of that, her reaction was, this is an outlier. Like this never happens. Therefore, we're going to just fix it and we're going to move on. And that
Mhm,
trust wasn't necessarily broken because you had created so much trust through your consistency prior to that piece. And that's the part that I want to sort of talk about because I think there's this incredible relationship between self trust and then trusting others, that consistency really is one of the so let me slow us down. I know I've
mhm,
done this on the pod before, but there's a trust formula that I love to use with my clients because when somebody says I broke trust or there's a trust issue or diminishing trust and building trust, you think, what is trust? Trust is
mhm,
made up of a lot of things. Well, there's an equation, I believe it's Meister, and I'll look it up after, but that says the trust equation is as follows. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Reliability, which is your say do ratio. Do what you say you're going to do. So in this instance, it's kind of fun. We're breaking down an actual story. The reliability is consistency. Like are you going to do this? You said you were going to do it every single day. And that was your consistency, your reliability, that was your commitment, really. It
mhm,
was an agreement. That's where the trust piece comes in. You agreed to something. The next piece is credibility, which
mhm,
is made up of technical competence. So obviously, if you're not a doctor, then you can't do a surgery, right? If you do not, you're not credible if you don't have certain skill sets. So there's technical competence that does come into play, but also character. Like, are you of integrity? It's another piece of the equation. And so now we have reliability plus credibility, plus the last one is authenticity or vulnerability or intimacy.
Mhm.
Those are the three words. And different people use different words. I personally love vulnerability. Like, are you
Mhm.
showing up as your true self? Do I know that I'm talking to the real you? You don't have a facade. You're not trying to be someone else. That piece is incredible for trust. Because if I don't actually believe you're being you, I've already stepped back and diminished the trust. So let me just go back over the numerator of trust: reliability plus credibility plus vulnerability, all divided by self interest. So on the bottom, the denominator, if you
Mhm.
are doing something that's all for you and it's not about the greater good and the we, so it's a me instead of we, and I feel that, and I think it's you're not doing this for us or the larger group at hand, then you're going to diminish my trust. So that's this incredible trust formula, which enables us to, when we're feeling that feeling, when you're like, I don't trust them, which, by the way, in a family situation, a work situation, disintegration of trust impacts all relationships. And if you
Totally.
start to just hold this, I don't trust them, that means you're going to behave completely differently.
Mhm.
And it impacts so many different areas. So I do think that being able to zone in and narrow in on what is the piece of this that is not sitting with you, landing with you, are there more than one? Is there one? Enables you to, if you're brave enough, have a conversation that
Mhm.
specifically points to that thing. So the beauty is you knew it was about consistency and reliability. But I also know that because you had built so much trust, that one outlier incident didn't really break or diminish the trust she had in you. It was disappointing, right? But if you do that over time and you consistently break that agreement, then I would say, yeah, I'm sure that reliability piece of trust is going to impact her belief in you, her willingness to say, I know that if Nio says she's going to do something, it's say do ratio, that she's going to do it. So I know that was a lot of information, but I'm still so curious about, look at how much you took about your own personal value of integrity, that when that one outlier thing happened, it was more that you were hard on yourself. You felt fearful. Yeah, go.
My judgment became into question because I trusted the wrong person to execute my task. So it wasn't so much about I broke trust or my integrity. I know who I am. My integrity is never in question. My integrity maintains. I went and I fixed it, and it never happened again. However, I had to deal with I placed my trust in the wrong individual. And I had to literally walk myself through that. How did I select this individual? Why was this the wrong person? And make the right decisions for the future. If I ever did need that assistance, obviously that was not the individual I would go to, but who would I go to? And how would I handle it? That was the equation that I struggled with and I had to fix. And I did. I created a whole document, a playbook if I wasn't available, and I gave it to my boss and I did trainings and it was lock, stock, and barrel and it was perfect. And there was another incident that I wanted to take some time off. Um, and even when I was on vacation, my son would tell you that my computer would ride with me, and I was downloading stuff and doing technical
See?
stuff while on vacation. And one time I just said, enough. And I put in my Neo away from the office plan into effect, and it worked beautifully. So there's always gratitude and a silver lining in the bad things that happen. But I had to deal with that my trust was broken,
Mm.
that this individual didn't meet up to my expectations because it was an expectation issue, an employee that just did not meet up to that expectation. And I had to grapple with that and try to figure that out. you know, for myself. And, that was difficult because, we look at things through our eyes
Mhm.
and we often expect things again through our eyes. So I have this whole big thing on integrity. I have this whole big thing on fulfillment. That doesn't mean everybody does. But my brain says everybody has the same level of being, and it's BS. No, they don't. And dealing with it as a I was in my 20s when this happened. As a young person in your 20s, when you are like, I must do this. It is my duty. you know, and the rest of the world is like, no big deal. It's
Yeah.
hard.
And this piece, I feel has a lot to do with growth and maturity. So you grew from that moment and said, okay, what did I learn and how can I make sure this never happens again? I struggle, just like you're talking about, consistency for me, reliability is a huge, to me, it's an agreement, right? I'm agreeing to show up because I said I would in a certain, time, location, etc. And, one of the things I've really grappled with, which you just nailed, is like when people don't show up on time, it literally makes me crazy. And what I'm assuming in that moment is that they're like me, that they're planners like I am, that they know they've investigated and done all the pre-work to know how long it's going to take to get there. They've buffered and allowed for something to go wrong.
Mhm,
For me, somebody said it once, I can't remember when, it was way back in like my Gillette days. It was like, to be 5 minutes early is to be on time. And I'm sure a leader told me that, and I never forgot. I was like, "Oh,
mhm.
okay." Like if I'm not 5 minutes early, I'm late. So
That's
right? And no one was like, "You did not walk in. You did not walk into a meeting late." Or I certainly didn't because I could see that that wasn't really acceptable. So I learned a behavior that was or wasn't acceptable, and I had my own value around being on time. So you double down on, okay, this is important to me. And then, as you said, I have all these people where, they're not on time. And I'm like, how does that work? But I think what it is for me is now, fast forward many years later, all the work that I've done, I go, all right, not everyone's like me. And some people really struggle with time management. Some people
Yep,
can't figure out how to be on time. It's not
yep,
that they don't want to be. And now
yep.
I'm learning that some people really want to be on time and they keep getting in their own way. Now, does that mean they have some work to do? Absolutely. They could figure out why they're always late, right? There's a whole bunch of,
Mhm,
ways in which you can look at things that you do consistently over time and why you do them. Because if you do something that doesn't make you feel good, there is a part of it that makes you feel good because you wouldn't do it. There's this unconscious commitments to ourselves that we could all do that work, but I get to choose now. Okay, if somebody is late, but they are consistently on time and they just show up late one or two times, I'm uber compassionate. I'm like, oh my God, don't worry about it. Who cares? No big deal. If somebody's consistently late, I will have a conversation about how that's not working for me. And I will
mhm,
say, hey, what's going on here? How should we handle it? Or sometimes if I'm thinking about this live, here we go, live on the podcast. I'm like, actually, or sometimes I just accommodate by knowing they're going to be late. But that doesn't usually feel good because then that means, like, if I'm trying to be like, oh, they're always going to be late, so I'll just assume they're late. That doesn't flow with my personal operating system because I don't like to feel, what if they show up on time? Then I'm the one that's like rushed and not feeling ready or et cetera. So honestly, as we talk through this, I probably tested a few different scenarios. Like I'll just assume they're going to be 15 minutes late because they're 15 minutes late every time. That doesn't feel very good. I mean, honestly, the best thing that feels good is when I say, it feels like you don't value my time
mhm,
when you show up late because I have stopped something else. I have given our agreement to show up at a certain time a priority over other things, and it feels like you haven't. In those conversations, I can sometimes learn how another person operates, a little bit more around like
yeah,
who they are as a human. And then we can have a conversation. And I will say, I've had this conversation. I'm the only one in my family that shows up on time. like quite literally. Not in my nuclear family. My nuclear family, of course, has me in it. I'm like a lot of rigidity growing up about being on time as a value. It was just a value, like being on time matters. But my parents, my sister, it was all very ambiguous. And I remember my parents would say, we're leaving for New York at 10 a.m. Because we would go to New York every weekend. We would drive back to New York, not every weekend, but once a month, let's say, because we moved to Boston and my whole extended family was still in New York. So we would make these big trips and they would say, we're leaving at 10. And I would be sitting in the car, already gotten ready, packed, or whatever. And we never left until 11. And I would just get enraged over the hour, like more and more angry and angry and angry and angry. I was like, who benefits from that? So I'm learning as we're talking through this, how much work it took for me to finally go, this is not okay. I need you to be more realistic around the time because I'm going to be there whenever you say we're leaving. That's just how I operate. So how do we get to a place where you're more realistic? And I get it. I don't mean to say that people that don't show up on time, there's anything wrong with them, because I will say, you could look at me and be like, you're so rigid, like you 5 minutes early, like that's, what kind of life is that? We all have like our things, but I do think that when you make an agreement, it goes to consistency. For me, it felt like something around when you are inconsistent about showing up, it's eroding my trust in us and in how you value our relationship. That's what it does for me.
Mhm.
Maybe that sounds crazy to people, but I will say to you, if you
No,
consistently
no,
show up
because
late, I am like, do you value our relationship?
yeah, because life is about patterns.
Yes.
It's all
Yes.
about patterns, whether they're positive patterns or negative patterns. It's all patterns. You see,
Interesting. I'm just like,
we are just habit oriented individuals. We do the same thing over and over again until we look in the mirror and make a choice to change it.
yes.
And then we create a new pattern. But it's all about patterns. And reality is consistency is a comfortable pattern. It is
Very,
one that you
very
know
comfortable
well.
for me.
Yeah, it's
It's very
comfortable
good.
for all of us.
Yeah.
It's one that you know. It's one that people know you by. They
Mm,
recognize that it's you because of the pattern that they see in the way that you display yourself. That's what
mhm.
consistency gives you, which is a positive thing. But at the same time, as the world is changing, we often need to change how we show up
Mm.
and have the flexibility to change that. And, and that's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about taking that pause, which we always talk about, and understanding that others are different, that maybe our consistent pattern can have variation that gives it growth and expansion,
Mm.
and be willing to look at our patterns and the way that we consistently show up to see if it fits the situation. Because not always does that pattern or consistency work anymore.
Yeah, there's a few things. One, this compassionate part, and two, this like also not compassionate part. So let's just talk about I'm like, oh, there's duality there for me. One is self-trust. So we talked about trust early on, and consistency is a great example. We're just looking at one pillar of trust. But even for myself, I say, okay, so am I consistent with an agreement with myself? So if I say I'm going to lift weights twice a week, am I doing it? No. Okay.
I know you're
Why
not
not?
because you hate lifting weights.
I hate lifting weights. I'm not doing it.
I know
But
you're not.
I'm not. But like today, I was like, why are you not doing it? You don't like it, but you know you need to do it if you want longevity and to be around, to have the bone density. And I know that that's an issue. Like I mean, in my family, it's a thing. I got to do it. It's very unlike me to not do things that I know are good for me. So I'm really having to look at that. So there's a piece of me that goes, oh, look at yourself and say, there are things that you are inconsistent with. with your own self. So, can you bring that compassion to someone else who maybe just can't seem to get out of their own way in a certain area? And I will say, yes, 100%. But where I get a little, and this is only with people you know really, really well, because you don't know who's doing what kind of work. But what you said, which I was like, oh, there's the other side of the coin. You and a lot of people probably that are listening to this or engaged with us and interested in what we're saying are doing the work. They're putting the work in to go,
Yeah.
whoa, why am I not doing it? Or what's going on? And so I do think I'll just own it. A part that I'm still really working on is that I get highly frustrated when I feel like I'm in relationship with someone who is not doing the work to
Yeah.
figure out what is going on for them that they consistently show up a certain way in our relationship. Because I feel like I'm constantly going, wow, whoa, what is my role in this? How can I make a different? How can I change this pattern of behavior if it's impacting somebody negatively, if it's impacting myself negatively? And and maybe I don't know, I wanted to be like, is it a luxury that I'm doing that? I don't know. I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what my patterns are, and if they're negative or hurting people or they're not good for me, I'm really working to change them. And I think sometimes it's super hard when you're with somebody that you care about and they just aren't doing any of the work to figure out how to show up differently. It's that whole idea of, the good old Mel Robbins, let them, that I just go, well, I don't get to control that. I don't get to control their doing the work. But I can't pretend that sometimes it just makes me go, well, I'm not going to stay in relationship because it doesn't feel good for me to like constantly accommodate something that is negative in our relationship, but I'm the one that has to always be the accommodator.
Yeah.
And I think I'm shifting out of that now, and I'm letting some things go where I'm like, I'm not going to keep doing the work if this other person, I look at it as like the best relationships are when there's communication, consistency, trust, and both people are saying, I value this relationship enough to be in the work together.
You hit it on the point. It comes down to both people valuing the relationship enough to give and take to support each other. And when you have a relationship that the person, we're going to stick with the example of being late, consistently is late, is definitely stating they don't value your time.
That's what it
Now,
feels like.
one thing that I really believe, and again, from working on myself, is I don't let the pattern continue for a long period of time.
Mm,
I let it happen once or twice, and then I have the conversation. Do we need to start later for our
That's
meetings? What is
yes.
the time that really works? It seems like you need a little bit of time to decompress from your last meeting. Do we need to maybe start our meetings at 2:15 instead of 2 o'clock? And I try to work with that person to give them the grace to be in who they consistently are, but to work that I can also be in that space with them. Because I am not going to continuously be showing up on a Zoom at 2 o'clock and waiting to 2:15 for you to come on and think that that is acceptable behavior. So I like to work with the person to try to find a resolution, but I will tell you, if I can't find a resolution, that's not a place I want to do business.
That's what I think
And
I'm realizing right there along with you. Like, I
yeah,
do think there's this beauty in trying to help them figure out like, "Hey, you pick the time.
yeah,
Let's do whatever." And if there is still no, it's not effort. I don't know how to describe it. Because I do
there's,
think
there,
sometimes
there's,
it's deeper level work to figure out why they can't do it,
yeah, and
but,
to
like,
tell you,
show me that you're trying that. Like,
yeah,
let's
and there's some people
be in
that don't
conversation.
even see it. They literally don't see it, and they'll tell you, but it's just not a big deal to you. But it's something that impacts me. It is a big deal to me.
Mm,
So it is a yin and yang, right? But
It is.
I think confronting the situation, dealing with the situation, truly changes the aspect of what fits in your boundaries and what does not. And that's where, we talked about consistency can be beautiful because it's structured, it's disciplined, it gets you closer because every action gets you closer to your goal,
Hmm.
or it could be a detriment. You don't like lifting weights. I love lifting weights. But I hate a treadmill. I hate running. So I struggle with doing, the running and all that type of exercise. You struggle with the weights. We both know that we should do
I know.
both, right? But we struggle. And everybody struggles with something.
With something.
We just have to figure out how to change our patterns.
And how beautiful
And
we can help each other.
yeah,
Meaning, if we
absolutely.
show up in real, this always comes back to showing up in compassion, curiosity, openness to say, "Hey, what's going on?" Not anger. I mean, I will say in the past, I would just come up really angry. Like, I mean, I was not kind when I felt like I had been, like my that our relationship wasn't valued because somebody just continued to just
Right.
not show up.
Right.
But now I really am like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, hey, can we fix this? I want to be in relationship. So how do we do it? How could it look different?" And I do think that for those of us that are in the work, and I'm saying this now, I'm like, "Oh, well, that's true." I'm thinking, "That's nicer, Beth. That'd be nicer,
Mhm.
Beth." That because I'm in the work, I could then help people. Again, going to modeling. If you model the behavior that you really want and wish for, which is, I want someone to sit at the other side of this and say, "What's going on?" Because best case scenario, we're communicating and we're building trust and we're in good relations together. That's the outcome that we want. So if I need to do that, instead of being bitter and angry about having to do it, maybe I look at the gratitude that I have that I know how to do it and that I can show up in curiosity and compassion to understand how better to build trust and relationship together.
100%. We've gone around the whole circle, haven't
I
we?
know. Wow.
We've dealt
Yes.
with the value of consistency, we've dealt with our own personal interpretation of it and how it impacts us as an individual, the outward impact of consistency. And what we've understood is the patterns that come across and how we always have the choice in what patterns we embrace and what patterns we let go of. With that, I think of the song for today, and I'm not being all that creative. The song is Consistency by Elijah Frazier. And it's about patterns. And how do we handle them? Let's find out what's happening with Gratitude Rocks.
Let's see where the energy is today. Okay, so the gratitude rock for the day is mindful. So I think Neo just said it. Let's understand and be mindful of our patterns. And if we are the ones that are in the work already, can we bring people to the table and help them to see their patterns, to maybe go a little deeper, to understand them? Because we do always have choice. We can choose to stay in a pattern, but if it's not serving us or the people around us, we can also choose to shift and make different choices to show up in ways that we want to. So mindfulness is kind of the key to the door into understanding our patterns and making different choices.
Could never have said it better. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Joy and Gratitude. Make sure that you join us again in the next one. Have a good day.